And I'm here today to talk to you guys about a series of mine, as well as a creative practice that's I've kind of become dependent on. So I know you're asking, well, what is he so dependent on? And it's really innovative. It's walking. I'm 17 and I came up with that wonderful idea of going for a walk. So I go on a walk for about 10 to 20 kilometers a day, hopefully. There's some lazy days. And just for comparison, walking from ESA to here is about 12.4 kilometers. Yeah, fun. So I walk with purpose, without purpose. And without purpose really is meaning not to think and to focus. So walking and exploring the unknown is what I like to do. And at first was really, really challenging for me because it involved putting faith in myself, which is something I don't necessarily like to do. And it wasn't until I had found my favorite place that I became comfortable in this median of movement that allowed me to think creatively in a way I'd never before. Basically, I'll tell you the story about me finding my favorite place. And I was grade 10, and I taught fencing in Greektown near Chester subway station. And I just finished class. It hadn't gone very well. I was actually quite disappointed in myself as a teacher. So to cope with that frustration, I said, I'm going to go on a walk. And I'm going to think about what I can do better. I'm going to think about how I can do it better. On this walk, I stumbled upon a wonderful set of trails known as the Don Valley. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It's very subtle. And it had a lovely highway with it. So I walked along the highway, jaywalked across the highway. That was fun. That was a bad idea. Went in between some thickets and basically ended up at the Evergreen Brickworks, which is a lovely little park area where people walk their dogs and go on jogs. But right by is an abandoned railway that overlooks the Don Valley Parkway. What goes right over it, no trains go there. So me being the idiot I am, say I can see that, which means I can get on top of that. And I did. I took as many random left and rights, hoping I'd find my way up there, and cut through a thicket, and ended up on this abandoned railway. Best view I've ever seen in my life. It had the cityscape of Toronto just far enough away that you feel like you're out of the town. And you could look out and see the cars constantly moving. It was overwhelming, it was a sensory overload because you could hear, you could feel the wind on your face because you were so up high, it was a cliff. It was just wonderful stimulation. But then I did something stupid, but we'll get back to that a little bit later. So I prefer to walk alone, not just because I sometimes dislike people, but because I get to move at my own individual pace, which allows me to think more clearly. I'm not trying to keep up with you or slow down for you. This allows me to think and reflect only upon myself. I had to adapt this feeling because I needed to become more focused. Because I, in high school, for the first time, found that I would beat myself up. Internally, of course. I would honestly push myself down, dwell on my loneliness, and I wasn't happy about stressing about my future like this. And it became such a chaos that I needed to find a way to meditate and push those things away. Of course, I tried a lot of other more teenagery things first. They're not as healthy as walking. I don't recommend getting into the habit of those. But once I began walking, and once I became comfortable with this, I was able to feel and articulate my passions more clearly. For with every footstep I take in the night, I was able to understand myself a little bit more. This wandering has presented me with freedom. I too often find myself bored with my current lifestyle, feeling that I'm living a mundane life and I could be doing more, not knowing where I'm walking to in the grand scheme of things. And funny enough, the best process to heal that fear for me was to walk without knowing where I was going. Walking broke me of my routine and freed me of my illusions regarding what is essential through dangerous and sometimes stupid moments. This wouldn't happen every time, but it was an occurrence, so it would happen every now and again. It is in these moments that I can connect to myself at my strongest when something reckless happens. So now we're going to go back to the stupid thing I did. So, wonderful view, should have stopped there. I should have just been happy with that and gone back down through the thicket and made my way back to civilization. But no, I was standing on solid ground, and that wasn't satisfying, so I walked out onto the bridge. bridge isn't working for trains anymore for a good reason. It is not very stable. And it wasn't until I was on top of the highway that I found that out. My foot had slipped through one of the cracks, for there was barriers between each wooden board, for people aren't supposed to walk there. My foot had slipped. That was fine on its own, but it was the sound that followed that scared me. I heard a and I went, oh, and right before I could say a lovely word I'm not going to say here, a board fell out from below me. And my whole leg, because I've got really thin legs, went down like this. And now my leg is dangling above the Don Valley Parkway, and I'm not sure if standing up using the force of one leg will break the rest of what I'm standing on. It didn't. I'm here. But it's moments like that that kept me walking, which is stupid. So, although I've narrowly escaped trouble more than once now, whether it be some other stories that I'm not going to go too into, like escaping from Russian drug traffickers, the police, which are always fun to deal with, occasional coyotes, stuff like that always gets me into trouble, always makes me feel like I'm not quite going to make it, but I do. So why do I keep walking? And it's because I need to. It is my meditation, and it's my escape. It's healthier than any other outlet I've tried or gotten stuck in. Plus, the rush isn't half bad. So these primal focuses and the liberation of walking can be seen within my work. Sorry for not keeping up with the slides. Can be seen within all of my work. But it is not necessarily the main message behind what I create, but is more of a crucial process behind me finding meaning. My art is what I find in the excavations my walks deploy. Not necessarily physically, I'm not stumbling upon those, but more of a mental realization. So what we see behind me here is called a cause and effect. These are my series of designs that I'm turning into paintings. Cause and effect, basically, it's a convoluted process that reflects my way of thinking and my meditation style of walking, which is random occurrences that create in-depth understanding. The process was, I went to anyone I had ever given advice to in high school, and I asked them to give me a number between, I think it was 1 and 5,000, something like that, and they gave me their individual number. And if they said if they had said a number that was said before, I'd say, no, pick a better number, which didn't happen, luckily. And then I would turn to that page in the dictionary and randomly select a word. Some words were boring, like this one was boot. Those words weren't very fun. But some words were a little bit more interesting, and this one was ablation. So I would analyze these words both internally and with research from this randomly selected number. And once I had understood what that word could be interpreted as and the history that could fall behind that word, not necessarily literally, I would create the most simplistic version of that word in imagery to replicate my way of thinking. This process of reflection of how I think, this process of reflection of how I think, it kind of just plays on the fact that life has randomness, but a set reality. All that flows through but all of that flows through our perceptions, right? And choices, leaving us with our own individual symbols like these. They create contexts, mythologies, and culture for each of us. Like a museum, I like to curate what I collect and what I understand in order to analyze myself more and pay respect to my outlook on life. This series best reflects that thought process. Like everyone, I have my own conclusions and my own consciousness. And my art is simply a reflection of how I feel and how I think. And I know how I feel and how I think best when I walk. Thank you.